Once again, it's on. Hey, I'm back at LA 36 Studios. I'm your host, Steve Calhoun of the Armed and Dangerous podcast. Hey, I have another incredible guest on today. And the reason why I'm so excited, because we're actually not talking about football, but we're talking about my first love, which is basketball. Hey, with no further ado, I'm about to bring in my guest, 12-year NBA basketball veteran, Raja Bell. Hey, welcome to the show, bud.
Hey, thanks for having me, Steve.
Good deal, man. Hey, so when I think about your career, like I said, just like I was just telling my guests, you were in the NBA for 12 years, and you were with the Spurs, the 76ers, Mavericks, Jazz, Suns, Bobcats, Warriors, and then you finished with the Jazz. You know what I mean? And for me, and for all my listeners and the young athletes watching, your career talks to me about perseverance. I mean, just the stick-to-itiveness, just grinding, because so many young athletes today, if the situation's not correct, hey, they just throw their deuces up and they're out of there. Talk to me a little bit about, where'd you get that from? I'm sure it was instilled, from your parents, who I met, and they're unbelievable people.
Yeah, I appreciate that. My dad was a college athlete and didn't get to live his dream of playing in the NFL. And, I watched him be a competitor in all kind of men's leagues growing up. He was a PE coach and a teacher, but, he played sports. And I was the gym rat kid running around, whether it was softball or basketball or volleyball. So I just grew up in a gym and modeled who I wanted to be as an athlete after what I saw him doing, which was just being a scrappy competitor that would scrape and claw anything he could do to contribute to a win. And so that's why I became. And then honestly, man, because it wasn't an easy road, I wasn't a draftee. I played at a low mid-major. The underdog mentality was just kind of in me.
There you go, no doubt. Hey, so you grew up in South Florida. Hey, when I think of South Florida, I'm thinking football. I'm thinking the U, Ray Lewis, all those teams, Howard Snellenberger. I mean, those teams. Hey, how was the basketball scene there?
Yeah, well, first of all, I was a Cane from day one, man. Orange Bowl, all those games. Those dudes were my big bros, and then the younger generation were my little bros. So I was locked in. Basketball, we had the athlete. Specifically, my year, we had a bunch of guys that were Kentucky, Indiana, Miami, Florida State, Penn State. We had a bunch of talent. The infrastructure at the grassroots wasn't there from a coaching perspective. So a lot of us were undefined, and it took a few years in college to really figure out exactly what a coach would have. But talent was there. We just didn't have the foundation of it.
Okay, good deal. So I know you went to a couple of different high schools, but you finished up at Miami Killian. Okay, you get recruited, and a South Florida kid, and you go to Boston University. Hey, was that your first offer or your only offer? Because with my son, when he got offered to go to UTEP, he was like, "Hey, Dad, this is the only school that really believed in me. That's where I'm going to go." Even though there were some other bigger schools that came late in the process. So, what was that situation like for you, and why'd you choose Boston University?
Yeah, Steve, very, very similar, man. I had an okay junior year where there were a bunch of mid majors in there, kind of heavy. BU was one of the first ones to the table, and they were recruiting me the hardest. And then I kind of had a glow up my going into my senior season that summer, and I was averaging about 28 a game my senior year. So the bigger schools started to come around. LSU had offered, Temple was in the gym, Georgetown didn't offer, but they were sniffing around, and I just felt comfortable at BU. I felt like they knew exactly who I was. I was not a late scramble to get for them. They needed me, and it was going to be a platform where more than likely I was going to get on the court earlier and be able to develop.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I'm talking to high school football players, guys from Southern California, Texas, Florida, and when they were like, "Hey, I got an offer from Syracuse or somewhere where it's really cold," and they're like, "I don't know, I want to stay close at home." But hey, you were in the gym, so you wasn't worried about the weather, huh?
No, well, I should have been, because I didn't realize I was going to have to take the public T and train to get to classes and get up to Babcock and get to the gym. And those were some brutal, for a South Florida kid, you got 8 a.m. classes, 60 degrees outside. Those sheets look really good.
Exactly. Exactly. No doubt. Hey, so you go up there and you play. and you were you were freshman of the year in the conference. Okay, talk to us about it didn't work out there. I don't know all the details, but you ended up transferring back to South Florida and playing at FIU, which is Florida International University.
Yeah, so I mean, I had a really good freshman year there. Opportunity presented itself for an older kid, got hurt, and really that was the only reason I was able to get on the court. And so I took advantage of that. I had 2 good years at FIU, and honestly, I thought I was going to go to Miami. It kind of back channeled it, and I thought everything was in place for that. The Hurricanes were good, but when it came time, Leonard Hamilton basically told me that we had 5 pros, and he didn't think I was one of them, and I could come, but that was the situation that was laid out. So I didn't feel really comfortable with that. This was a day and a time, Steve, where you didn't get a release, like a team had to sign off. So I had a bunch of teams that I had played well against at BU, really interested, New Mexico, Oklahoma, schools like that, but BU wasn't having that. So I'd hear from those schools, and then they'd be like, let's get you out on a visit, and then they go ghost on me. I'd never hear back. So FIU legendary high school coach Shaky Rodriguez was there. He was familiar with me from high school. I had played on some travel tournaments with him, and he basically said they wanted to be Loyola Marymount, and then he wanted me to kind of lead that charge, try to lead the country in scoring. That appealed to me, and quite frankly, the opportunity itself, because I was sitting there waiting for something to come my way, so it all worked out.
Yeah, definitely. And then you're back at home, family, man, you got to, the support of the village. That's what I always talk to athletes about. It's about the village that's around you that helps you, through those tough times. And when situations are not exactly perfect, you can kind of go home and get a home cooked meal, which is always a remedy,
Oh, man. Yeah. I mean, look, to be able to look up and see your parents in the stand every game, to be able to get to the crib if anything goes wrong, you just need to sit down and see some faces invaluable.
Exactly. So, you finish your career at FIU, and you go undrafted, okay? But then you get an opportunity to go to the CBA, to the Yakima Sun
Kings.
Yakima Sun Kings. There you go, in the CBA. That's your first. That's your first professional experience. Talk to me about. I know Yakima's up in the state of Washington, so you fly across country, you get your first contract, and you're hooping in the CBA.
Yeah, well, I didn't know it was in Washington. I didn't know anything about it. They just told me I got drafted into it. So yeah, I went up there, and I always tell people it was really eye-opening experience for me, because I had NBA aspiration. I'm out of a training camp with Atlanta, and even though it was never probably in the cards for me to make that team, I thought that's where I should be. And that CBA is a man's league. It will test whether you love playing basketball immediately. And if you don't, it's going to chew you up and spit you out. And if you do, you got to lock in for the grind that is everything about the CBA, the games, the travel, the play, the physicality. And so it was a great experience for me to really start figuring out who I was. Did I really love doing that? Was I willing to do what it took to get where I was trying to go? And it just gave me a great appreciation for things to come, even though I didn't realize that was happening.
Oh, good deal. Hey, but you still, you were up there hooping because you made the all-rookie team in the CBA, and man, so I know it's so cutthroat. I talked to one of my guests a couple of weeks ago. His name is Josh Booty. He was the 5th pick in the MLB draft for the Marlins, and he talked about the grind of playing in the minor leagues. From A ball to to AA to AAA, and just the bus rides. So he talked about that grind, and everybody is trying to get to the big leagues.
Yeah, look, it's an incredible opportunity for all of this. But you really do have to lock in and understand that ultimately you don't want to be there, right? So you use the platform, you do what you have to do, and you're all fighting for. In the NBA, you might have got 15 to 20, 10 days, maybe 30, 10 days, and so I don't know how many people are in the sea, but you're all fighting for that, that little slot.
Hey, so like I said, you played well. Hey, you get an opportunity to go to San Antonio Spurs. You don't get an opportunity to play there. And then you find yourself signing with the Philadelphia 76ers, Allen Iverson. Man, how was that? I mean, you got a chance to play against every day and play next to a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, that was a wild ride. I didn't expect that. I hadn't played much that year. I had broken my leg, and so when the Sixers called me, I had just checked back into Sioux Falls, South Dakota, but I hadn't played a game yet. So it was a really, unexpected kind of call to get from them. But I mean, not only AI, who was just a fantastic teammate and just a warrior, like for his size, height, and just overall weight wise, like what he was able to do was like maybe one of the most remarkable things ever. He lived in the pain. He lived with the usage of his body, and like that's at the time where there were 2 7-footers, there were 275 apiece on every roster on the court, so it was punitive. But I had great vets, man. Like I had Aaron McKee, Eric Snow, George Lynch, Tyrone Hill. Like it was a who's who was looking out for me. Kempe, yeah. So it was really a great experience. Larry Brown meant so much to who I became as a player. It was just a great ride, and it was, if that doesn't happen for me, who's to say whether I ever crack the NBA?
Yeah. Hey, tell me about, Larry Brown. Hey, what is it about some coaches that are better than the others? I believe it's the way they communicate the information to the athlete to get them to perform. What is it about Larry Brown, that connected with you to help you along in your young career?
Yeah. Interestingly, man, like I played for some real Hall of Fame dudes, and I got to play for them all twice. Larry Brown, Don Nelson, Jerry Sloan, and the only one I didn't get to play for twice was Mike D'Antoni. So I was really blessed, and I saw coaching from a lot of different perspectives. I think Larry's superpower was, he was just a genius in terms of basketball IQ and understanding how the chess pieces moved around the board. And he was able to put you in positions as a player to kind of maximize who you were. Now, who he was as a coach for a young player, I think just pretty much across the board, Cats would tell you he's really, really, really tough on young players. So my first experience with LB, and I did not know it at the time, was preparing me for just like having a thick, calloused skin when I moved forward, being able to kind of like compartmentalize what he's talking about, how it affects my confidence, and still being able to go out there and do my job. When I had LB the second time, we had a different relationship. I was able to get to know more of the softer side of him, and like the guy who cared about you and would converse with you a little bit more. But I was a different player, and I meant more to the team at that point than I did the first time around.
Deal, man. Hey, so you're in your second year, man. You guys go to the NBA Finals. You guys run into Shaq and Kobe. Man, yeah. How was that experience just being in the finals? Playing against that team. You got Phil Jackson on the opposite side.
I mean, I was still a fan, man. Like, it was so wild because, I was competing every day, but the reality was, like, I had not very long ago just been a fan of the NBA. So it was hard not to be in that mode when you got on the court. I hadn't played much through the playoffs, the middle part of the regular season. I was there. So, getting that call in Game 6 and 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals was surreal in and of itself, but I didn't think that was going to lead to much more than that. So, when I got called onto the court in the Staples Center, I think it was late in the first quarter of Game 1, maybe early second quarter, I literally just I was fighting to survive. I was running around, no thought, like just like fight or flight syndrome kicked in. So, those first couple of games was like that, and then it really sunk in what was happening. And then I was able to kind of lock in, and sure, we got beat, but I was living a dream every time I got to be on the court or the bus or the practice floor, what have you.
Absolutely. Hey, so I think that, again, great coaches, I think they define players' roles. And so what was your role on that 2001 76ers team?
Guard him. That was my role. And I know that sounds crazy, but that was the role. And they started, so every day in practice, whenever I could, I'd guard Chuck. I didn't do it well, but I noticed that on this team, the way it's built, there's not an opportunity to do much else. So if I could get on the court as a younger player, and there were a bunch of us, if I could guard, that was an avenue, right? And it didn't provide right away. It didn't bear fruit, but they started coming to me in the Vince Carter, Allen Iverson battle series. That was the conference semis. asking if I could guard Vince. And I was like, yeah. Like having no idea whether I could guard him or not, but like, let me get a shot. And it didn't happen until the last two games with Big Dog and Ray Allen in the Eastern Conference Finals. But literally, that was my role. Like, if you should get the ball, maybe shoot it, but don't be bashful giving it back to Chuck. Other than that, just guard somebody.
You have a great couple of years with the 76ers. You signed with the Mavericks. Like I just talked about, perseverance, you know what I mean? Every opportunity, you get another opportunity with the Mavericks, and you guys go back to the Western Conference Finals. Talk to me about that little bit of that team. What were some of the things, that the head coach, instilled in you, and did you have to refine your role again on a new team?
Yeah, straight up. So when I left, the what gets lost in that is I was in Spain before I got the call from Dallas. So I didn't love being in Europe, and the kicker was I was going to make more guaranteed in Europe that year than I would as a guarantee in the NBA. But when the Mavs called, I took a non-guaranteed to come back and play in the States and make less money. But I just felt like I could do it given the opportunity. So it was a stressful first half of the year because I didn't know if they were going to keep me and guarantee me the rest of the season or if I was just going to be a casualty. But as it was, we were a good team. You had Dirk and Steve and Finn and Mo Williams, Nick Van Exel. So we were stable enough where I could keep the job. And then again, Steve, it played out. A lot of people that could score the ball. And so Adrian Griffin and I became these two people that didn't have to have the ball, but could come in and guard a bunch of people. And we basically split that up. He started half the games, I started half the games. And then in the playoffs, I got a lot of burn in that series. So they rolled me out there, I guard different people. And so I still wasn't tasked with doing a lot of scoring, but I had more people around me that had offensive weapons in their bag. So in practice, I was able to explore that a little bit more. And even though you couldn't really see it on the court, I was growing.
Absolutely. Yeah, just talking about, you came back and played for the Mavs and you didn't have a guarantee. Hey, that's just about betting on yourself. And I think that's kind of lost with a lot of athletes. In the news right now, talking about University of Texas, we're going to get to that. But, Arch Manning, he's betting on himself. He could have jumped in the portal and went anywhere and been a starter, but he's betting on himself, got the opportunity this past weekend, and he's playing well. So you go from the Mavericks, and then you sign with the Jazz.
Yeah.
And you're there, and that's when you start to really come to your own. You start hooping. Because like you said, in high school, man, you average 28 points. So it's not like, you can't score the ball. So you average 11.3 points, a few assists, and you starting to hoop. So you're with the Jazz. Talk to us about that experience.
Yeah, so that one I like. That was an interesting situation for me because it allowed me to spread my wings a little bit. Stock had just retired, Mail went to LA, and there was just a void of overall, kind of point scoring and leadership. So there was a bunch of young cats: Deshaun Stevenson, Carlos Arroyo, me, Matt Harper, Andre Kirilenko. We were all at this stage in our career where we wanted to kind of get down and figure out who we were. And Jerry, again, it's the theme of my career, was the type of coach. His superpower was it was keeping it non-political and letting you eat what you kill. So it didn't matter where you came from. It didn't matter where you were drafted to or not drafted to. If you could get in there and do what Jerry asked you to do, which was be tough, be hard-nosed, execute the offense, he'd give you an opportunity. And then it was what you did with that. So, I was able to get more and more. And then, to your point, I had this little skill set. It was never really asked of me to use it, but it didn't mean I couldn't do it. I just had to wait for the opportunity to let some people see it.
There you go. Hey, so there was some really big shoes to fill. Hey, John Stockton, the mailman. Did the guys on the team feel that pressure of man, we got to try to match what they did? Or did you guys, or just Jerry Sloan, said, hey, relax, that's not you guys. Let's just, this is our game plan. This is our team. Let's go out and just hoop.
Yeah, I think the city, originally, they were good for so long that, it was hard for them initially with our team to kind of settle their mind on the fact that we weren't going to be that. But I mean, we were a scrappy young bunch that played really hard, and kudos to that Salt Lake and that Jazz fan base. Like, they really supported us because they knew we gave it everything we had, and I think we came up like a half game short in the playoff with the roster that people probably thought was last in the West. And so we didn't feel pressure, Steve. Like, we were just out there hooping. A lot of us at a stage in our career where, like, we didn't really know what pressure was. We were just trying to survive and carve out a niche in the league.
Hey, so you finish your stint with the Jazz and you sign with the Phoenix Suns, right? And you got a chance to play next to another Hall of Famer, Steve Nash, and a star, Amari Stoudemire, Jalen Rose. I mean, you guys had a squad right there. So you get there, hey, you got to find your role again. How was that experience like playing next to Steve Nash? Is there some things that you picked up from him in practice, just kind of observing him?
Yeah, Steve and I had become friends in Dallas. This time I was a free agent. It was the first time I could really pick where I wanted to go. Like, I had suitors. So this was targeted. Like, Steve and I had talked about it. I saw what they were doing as an offense. And they thought that they could use a piece like me to come in and help. And so when I got there, as I talk about these coaches, Mike's superpower was just, helping you believe in yourself in a way that made it undeniable what you were capable of, right? Like, his belief in you helped you believe in you. And so, they told me what I was going to do offensively, the shots. The man told me I was going to shoot like quadruple the amount of threes that I had shot in Utah, like the first time I met him. And I couldn't wrap my mind around that. But he was just like, this is going to happen, right? Like, and it wound up happening. As far as teammates go, and Steve had this ability, man. Like, obviously everybody knew his physical gifts, right? But I say what made him the best point guard I ever played with was what he was able to do for you as a player, which is like, he had these broad shoulders and this kind of like grace that he was going to get because he was Steve Nash and MVP. So if there was a mistake made and it was 50-50, him or me, like, Steve had no problem being like, yo, that's my bad, in a way that would shield me from the criticism or shield his teammate from, what the media might be saying, because we didn't have the type of like grace that he was going to get. And so I thought that was his superpower, just his connectivity, the way he was with his teammates, just the relationships that he was able to build on top of who he was as just a physical player.
Mike D'Antoni's offenses, are always known for that, like that run and gun. Hey, one person I forgot to mention, you guys had Shawn Marion. You guys had the Matrix. Amari Stoudemire. You guys could just throw it up towards the rim and just, it was unbelievable to watch you guys.
People don't really know this, but like, obviously, Steve and Amari were kind of the headliners. But I always say this: Trix was the one that made that ball, because he'd be from the defensive board to the front of the rim on the offensive end, like in a snap of the fingers, which collapsed defense and then let us fly to the corner. So it really put teams in a tough spot, and he doesn't get the credit for that. But he was really the one that, like, he set the pace and got us up and down.
Man, so now you're shooting threes. Hey, you're averaging 14 points a game, almost 45% from the line, and you get invited to the NBA All-Star three-point contest, right?
Yeah.
Why didn't you go?
Yeah, man. Like, I actually went, and I was there Friday night, and then Cindy was pregnant for the first time, and we had tried really hard, and it wasn't that easy for us, and she miscarried, and so I had to deliberate. It wasn't much of a deliberation, and so I came home, and it was really a no-brainer for me. Like, that was a rough couple of weeks for us. We were blessed that we were able to go on and obviously help family and stuff like that. But at the time, it meant more for me to be at home with her than it meant for me to be, trying to win a three-point shoot.
Exactly. Hey, that's an easy decision. When it comes to family, easy decision.
No doubt.
Hey, so also that year, you made an NBA first team all defense.
Yeah.
So all those years of playing against AI and playing against Kobe and all the Steve Nash, when you're in Dallas, all that kind of really helped you out, and people started to notice, like, damn, Raja he could D up.
Yeah. Well, I didn't like. Listen, man. In high school and college, if you had told one of my teammates that I was going to wind up being known as a defender, they would have laughed you out of the gym because I just had no interest in doing it with that, really. But like you figure out, when you become a pro, Steve, and this is what I try to tell like my boys or anybody who I'm addressing. Like, when it becomes a business, like it's not always what you want. It's how you can make a living doing it. Like what services can you provide that make you like integral to that company, and make you integral to that team. And so I figured that out, and then it started to show up in a way with the Suns. And honestly, man, I think it was because we just weren't known for defense. It kind of helped boost me as a defender, right? Because I was out there defending. But it was cool because I did hang my hat on that, and I took pride in that, and I wanted to guard your best player, whether I did a good job or not. Like, it was something I took pride in. So to be rewarded for it at that level was really humbling, and like, just I could have never dreamt of that.
Took the challenge, and that's half of it, just taking the challenge. Hey, so one thing you made headlines for is Kobe's going to the basket and you clothesline him, right? And I'm looking on Sports Center, I'm like, oh man, Raja, you know what I mean? So that blew up. That was a really interesting, that series of games, you know what I mean? But
Yeah.
on the side is just talking about Kobe. Rest in peace, Kobe. Hey, where were you when you found out the news that he passed away?
Kobe was on his way to Gigi's, youth tournament. I was actually in a car with 5 kids and a father as I was coaching our team in a youth tournament that day. We were here in Miami, and the kids were in the back, so we were literally doing the same thing. I mean, he was in a helicopter, but I was in the truck, but like we were doing the same thing, taking our kids to games. And one of the kids said in the back, like, "Hey, man, Kobe was X, Y, and Z." And I vividly and pretty aggressively turned around and was like, "Yo, man, don't say that dumb. Like, this can't be true, but I don't even joke like that." And then another kid said he saw it, and I called Steve, who was living in LA, Steve Nash, and asked him. He was like, it sounds like it might be true. And so that one hit hard because we did become buddies after that. Like, we weren't going on family vacations and stuff like that, but that was my guy, and just the eeriness of where we were in our lives, doing kind of the same thing all weekend, and like how quickly it can be taken away from your family, and like it was that one hit hard, bro. That was a tough one.
Talking about the greatness of Kobe Bryant. Hey, take us into the locker room. Pre-game, you guys have a scouting report, okay? And how did the coach say, okay, this is how we're going to defend him? Kind of take us in the locker room. Talk to us about the scouting report on how to defend Kobe.
Well, my scouting report generally was to try to deny him the ball as much as I could. Try to get him off of the elbow where he liked to make the catch in that triangle offense. Make him work for extra feet out on the perimeter so I could get him off of his spots, and then try not to foul him. Make him shoot contested shots. Now, that's just boilerplate, like what I'm going to try to do, that you can't always execute that. From a team perspective, we would do different things at different points in his career, Steve. Like sometimes, you send the double at him because I could play great defense and do everything right on a possession, and he's that good where it's not going to stop him from scoring, like when he's hot. So like that can be a lonely place. And so sometimes, it would be like, yo, send a double at Kobe. Let's try to get it out of his hands. Make someone else beat us. But then there were other times in his career where we try to get him into like a back and forth with me. Like, I'd be the villain, and I'd see if I could bait him into trying to just score 50 on me, right? Because if no one else could get going, then that 50 was probably not going to beat us. And that is a very lonely feeling when your coach is telling you, hey, dog, you about to get 50, you can't do anything about it, and we're not helping. But that was putting our team in the best position to win, at least in theory. But look, man, like I catch a lot of stuff from fans now for like some of the viral clips of me barking at him or him going off. I'm not ashamed to say, like, listen, that cat was too good for someone like me to just think I could sit down and guard him physically and it was going to be all right. Like I was looking for everything I could get on any given night to try to be successful with that because he was just that good.
Absolutely. Golly, man. And you have so many incredible stories. I mean, hey, I got to have you back on. Right? So, this is not the end of the show, but I mean, there's so much more. I mean, to talk about. I would love to hear some Allen Iverson stories and some more Steve Nash stories. But hey, so you have a big time quarterback in your family. Hey, you're a hooper. We just been talking for the last couple of segments, about basketball and your journey. But you got a big time quarterback. Hey, your son Dia Bell, American Heritage High School. He's committed to University of Texas. He's a 5-star quarterback. How? Hey, he used to hoop. Hey, I had the opportunity to work with him, as a quarterback, and he used to hoop. Hey, did it break your heart when he said, "Hey, Dad, hey, I'm about to go this way and throw this pigskin"?
I'd be lying if I didn't say initially, man. We were out back over COVID, training, like hooping, and I was kind of proud of him because it came out of nowhere, and he just said, "Dad, I don't love this." Like, love what? And he was like this. And it was basketball, and it did hurt because we had invested a lot of time, and it was my time with him as he grew up, and then that was seemingly coming to an end at that point. But he meant it, and he was committed to trying to chase the football dream, and it wound up being something that we shared with him that was less pressure for him, and it kind of helped our relationship because I didn't know enough about it. And I could still be involved in taking training sessions and watch him play without critiquing it and stuff like that. So, I supported him, but yes, initially I was like, "What?"
Yeah. Hey, so it was nice for me to, I had a few opportunities to work with him, and now he's working with OB, Oliver Bozeman, who's done an unbelievable job, continue to pass the torch. And so, hey, I never hate on any other quarterback coach. It's just able, to help to continue to develop, athletes, you know what I mean? Hey, no hate there. OB's doing a great job. Hey, so talk to us about recruiting. Okay, he had not only Texas, but, man, 35, 40 offers. Okay, so he picked Texas. Who was second? Who was third?
So, yeah, I mean, man, it came at us real quick, Steve. Like, we didn't know what he was. Like, he hadn't played in high school, and then that happened like that. So it went from 0 to 100 real quick. I think at the end of the day, it was Texas 1, Penn State 2. And then I think there was a group of schools that were right around 3, and that had Oregon, Miami, Ohio State, LSU.
Okay. So he never thought about staying at the crib. You just mentioned Miami. But again, the support system, the village around him, see mom, pops, grandma, grandpa, he never like, hey, I want to stay here and help build Florida State, Florida, or Miami. It was never.
Yeah. Well, I think so honestly, like Florida was in there early. Like they were one of his first offers. I think BYU was his first Power 4, and then Florida was his second. And we really like Florida. My sister's later have played basketball at University of Florida, but the stability there we weren't sure about. Just being frank, like we weren't sure about that, and so we had to put a pin in that. Florida State didn't come to the table until late, and so that wasn't an option. He really gave Miami a lot of thought. We have season tickets. My dad was an associate AD there. I'm a lifelong Canes fan. We were in their offices maybe 3 days before he committed, sitting with Mario and Shannon Dawson, and so it was a real conversation. I think Dia, and I don't mean to speak for him. I'm just kind of guessing at it. I think he wanted to kind of go establish an identity, and he saw some things in Texas that he thought were going to help him be able to do that.
Absolutely. So give me one story that you and Cindy had to go through as far as this recruiting process. Like, give us something crazy. I mean, I went through it, not at the level, my son was never a 5-star, but I'm sure, you and Cindy had to go through a crazy recruiting situation that you can share on air.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, man, because we didn't have too much like crazy stuff, Steve, because Dia committed way out in advance, so like we didn't have craziness. Our as a family, probably our craziest one was getting stuck in LSU. Like we were down there hanging out with Coach Sloan and their staff, and we just got stuck, so we couldn't go anywhere. So they had to like put together a whole evening of basketball games and different kind of stuff to just kind of keep us busy because we couldn't get out of Baton Rouge until the next day. So, you know what the incredible thing is, man? Like, I'm sure you dealt with that, and I don't mean this in any like trying to flatter anyone or anything, but there were so many great people that we met along the way that we would have felt really comfortable having our son like be with them for 3 to 4 years. Like, and unfortunately, you can only choose one, but like we met some incredible folks along the way.
Yeah. And so what was it about Coach Sarkisian from Dia's perspective, and you can speak to him a little bit because I'm sure you guys had conversation, but and the family, what made you guys really feel comfortable with, you know, with what he was talking about going on down in Austin?
Yeah, well, you know, we had taken Dia out to Austin maybe in his 9th grade summer, and he wasn't like a recruit yet. They didn't know who he was, but we got a tour and all of the things that they did for him as a real recruit on that visit as a 9th grader, and the feel was the same. Like, it wasn't a fake thing. Like, they were operating the same way when he was a nobody to them as they were when he was a somebody to them, and I thought that said a lot. Every time we went around the program, you know, you kind of felt like family. A lot of people were able to do that, but Texas was one of them. So, you know, when it came down, he was looking for an opportunity to compete for a national championship, a good school, and then a place where he could see himself like developing. And I think he really felt we let him make the decision and parse through it on his own. And if he needed answers, we were there to kind of help him with them. But we wanted it to be his decision, and he felt really strongly that Sark, what he did offensively, his success historically with quarterbacks, just the development that he thought he would be able to get at Texas was going to be a good spot for him. And ultimately, that would be what helped him get to the level that he wants to get to as a player. Like, we all have dreams. And so he was real responsible with it. I think he vetted it pretty well. Great school, great atmosphere in the building, real family environment. And then Sark, the offense being that pro style, it's, you know, what really sold us, Steve, honestly, on our last visit there was Sark going through his family tree of coaches and the NFL roots that he has, the people whose offense, you know, are similar to his, and they all come from the same school of thought. And so, you know, when your aspirations are to be a pro quarterback, whether that happens or not, like, that's a great opportunity to learn from someone who has that type of, you know, background. And so, from the wife and I's perspective, you know, we just wanted to make sure that it was a family, that they cared about the person, not just the player, and that they were going to take care of him, you know, when he was out of our house and in theirs. And we went out and did the due diligence, and we felt comfortable with that.
No, man, that's awesome. Hey, I'm really looking forward to his career at Texas. But I mean, I just want to continue to see him do well, you know, at American Heritage, and possibly lead them to a state championship. You know, as you know, my son's down, you know, with the Dolphins, so I got to get down there. So, hey, whatever weekend I can get down there to watch him play, you know, I got to come in early and watch Dia play and come visit the family as well, man. So, hey, I cannot thank you enough, hey, for being on the show today, hey, sharing your experiences. Hopefully, you know, a lot of young athletes can hear your story and it'll just motivate them. Just, hey, at the beginning of the show, I talk about perseverance, you know, and one of my things I always say, turning big rocks into little rocks with a small hammer. So again, I cannot thank you enough on the show.
Steve, thanks for having me, brother. And to everybody out there, man, keep listening to this man. He's preaching.
All right, I appreciate it. Well, good deal. Hey, well, thank you guys, everyone, for joining me on the show. Hey, again, thank Raja Bell for just taking time out of his busy schedule. But you can find this show and amazing content on my Instagram, which is Armed Danger, and then my X, Armed Danger QBS, and then also on TikTok is Armed and Dangerous Football Podcast. So until then, I'll see you next week at another exciting show.